Hi guys, I'm Shmee, hello and welcome back to the channel where you join me in the almighty AMG G63. We're back here in London, heading today to Stansted Airport to go and collect the Ford GT. It has flown back over at the end of the tour from the USA. It flew from Chicago actually to Stansted. Now I tell a lie, it flew to Luxembourg and then it's been transported with a bonded transport to Stansted to clear UK customs. So we're heading in the G to go and pick up the Ford GT. It is a very early winter's day here. You can tell it rained overnight. The ground is still wet, but the skies are blue. I cannot wait though to drive this car back here in the UK just a few days after I said goodbye to it in the US. Then of course we will head back afterwards towards the garage to see some of the other cars, to give you an update on what's going on. The LT is back, some of the other cars are in storage. I can tell you a little bit more, but overall I can't wait for the GT back here at home. Unfortunately, I do seem to be slightly losing my voice, which I partly blame on how much colder it is here than some of the recent places I've been in the US, Las Vegas, LA, Texas, but we are back here. It is a lovely, lovely day. The sun is out. Hopefully it's going to dry up the tarmac a little bit later on before driving the GT back into town. But I tell you what, the GT is actually still slightly dirty with road grime from in the USA, from driving it around Chicago in the rain. So I didn't have time to clean it up, and I will therefore get it cleaned up properly. In fact, I think I might give it a post-trip shakedown, probably a service, probably a visit to Topaz to get it all completely prepared and make sure everything is nice with it. We are basically going to cruise with this car today, about 40 miles or so to get it from here all the way to Stansted Airport. Of course, we do have our exhaust valve button if we wanted it to be extra noisy, because of course we fitted just before leaving. Stop start, obviously. Yes, before leaving we fitted the Akrapovic exhaust system. In fact, we did some cool stuff with the G before we left, like a lap of the Nürburgring Nordschleife in this thing, VMAX on the Autobahn, 246 kilometers per hour. Let's pop it into gear then. In fact, let's go individual mode here, just so it holds in manual, just for a moment, to enjoy some of this. I love the sound of this thing. I'm a little bit childish, I know. This certainly sounds, well, leagues ahead of the GT. I will be honest, for later on, when we've picked up the car, I'm not sure what we'll be able to do in terms of videos at the cargo terminal. These things, of course, 50-50, you never know, but we'll bring the car back, drive it back home. I thought about arranging a transporter for it, but no, I wanted to drive it. So we'll drive it back home, get it back into the garage, and then when we're there, we can have a little catch up about some of the other things going on too. We have a little bit of a tunnel, so window down, drop some gears. It takes forever to drop gears in this car because there are frankly so many of them, but then those upshift noises you get when you're on the throttle and you upshift, it's a colossal explosion, just a crack, a snap. Anyway, the road seems to be drying out, sun doing its thing. We are heading onwards. We're in an average speed check zone, as we have so many of back here. I'm hoping there's not going to be any traffic along the way, and we'll get there in good time and hopefully get the car. Got all the paperwork with me, got everything I think I need, and fingers crossed it'll just be a case of picking it up. This sign then, air cargo, that is of course where we are headed. Next exit, Stansted Airport. It is time then. Of course, we have some planes flying in overhead as well. We are basically arriving, and I'm actually quite excited now. We've had the notice from the agent at Cars UK that the car is all in good condition. That's always a small nerve, but obviously my car's now flown there and back, problem free. It's ready to go. The paperwork is done. I've got some of the extra papers on me as well, but we'll basically get there and be able to drive straight away. Welcome to London Stansted Airport. It is peculiar coming to Stansted, not Heathrow, because Heathrow is obviously the go-to instinct for where you would bring this kind of thing, but it's actually quicker here because it's less busy, it's cheaper, it's just easier all around, and to me it doesn't make all that much difference going straight into London afterwards anyway. So we are probably now less than a mile away from being reunited with the Ford GT, literally about 3,500 miles from where I last saw it, in Chicago in the USA. That continues to make no sense whatsoever, but apparently it's here. So let's crack on, go pick it up and see how it is. We've got all of these different areas then, but I know where we're going, right in here. So let me get this car parked up. We'll head inside, and I believe the car is still on the pallet. Literally the same pallet that it was loaded onto at the other end. In fact, we can park just in that visitor parking space right there. And then I'm actually really excited right now. Again, it feels like new car collection day, but we've got our lovely little map. This helps so much, parking a car like this. Of course, to the right side of the space, so as the guy on the left has a little bit more room, but you can just makes life a doddle. Anyway, engine off. Let's go inside and go find the Ford GT. Inside the cargo warehouse then, high-vis of course, and the car is arriving. We can see it many miles from where we last saw it. This thing is about to be unloaded. This is the very same pallet that you saw me loading it onto in Chicago, now this far away, having flown across the Atlantic, strapped down, ready to be unloaded. This is so cool. It is literally like new car collection day again. I've said it a few times, each time it's been delivered to these new cities. The car has been on its travels. It's been through New York, Philadelphia, Atlanta, Miami, across to LA, San Francisco, Vegas, having gone through Death Valley, Detroit, Chicago, and now here in the UK again. And yes, it's going to need a clean, the dust from transit, but here we are, my Ford GT, back here at home in the UK, ready to be unloaded. It's all unstrapped and being lowered down. It's actually quite clever how this works. You've got all those racks at the back, the pallet comes forwards, comes all the way down to this front piece, which drops down to the floor, and then I think it can literally just be driven off. Of course, we might need to use the lift system, but conveniently we have that, no problems. But literally as it was when we loaded it up, here, now, and arrived. This is just the strangest thing. The strangest thing. The Ford GT is here, completely, of course, with its documentation, the same letters that we actually put inside it at the other end from Chicago Ord. And yeah, transferred here. A little bit dusty, as we said, in need of a good clean up. But yeah, insanity that has flown around the world. I've signed the paperwork, the car is released, so I can literally take a step inside, start it up and drive it out. And of course, the car basically has no fuel in it. It will have the exact same mileage that it had on the clock when I parked it up on this pallet, because of course nobody has driven it in the interim period at all. It was strapped down, and that was that. The key has to travel inside the car. I talked about this before, but it has to travel inside in case basically anybody should happen to foolishly sit inside and lock themselves in. But I think we can literally bring it into life. Sounds good. 10 miles to empty. See, not exactly ideal, but let's give it a second just to warm up. There we go. And then drive on out. V6, lots of turbos between these. Bi-turbo, and yeah, I think it's going to be time to jump back on board then and head on back towards London. This is really quite dusty actually. It's going to need a proper clean, but this is why you have PPF. In transit, you can put a cover over the car rather than leaving it open, but because it's PPF'd, I'd prefer it to be like this, because a cover could potentially kind of rub around in transit and damage the paintwork or something. So I prefer it to be left uncovered and just get it washed when I get back. Travelled with the windows up as well, so that wasn't so much of a problem. And overall, I think it's all looking completely perfect and ready for the drive now, which just feels ridiculous. The first thing though, first stop is going to be to go to a fuel station to fill this up. Okay then, get this started up. Quite a few bits of idling here, which isn't exactly good for this very low amount of fuel we've got, but we will follow the G to about a mile away, the first fuel station, which is a compulsory stop. But how strange is this then? Driving in my car, ready to head out of Stansted Airport. It's mind-boggling. It's so cool that you can do this. Drive my car on a different continent, and now drive it back here. Of course, we've got the last bits of Chicago fuel inside the car, 93 octane fuel, so that's I think equivalent to like 97 RON, I think. Anyway, we're gonna get hopefully the best stuff we can find, some decent fuel over here, get it filled up, and continue the drive back into London, which I rather suspect is going to be a little bit longer than the drive out here earlier on. But this is so cool. Driving in the GT, following the G63. We did have this once before. We did drive these two. No, I tell a complete lie. No, we've never had these two cars driving together. I don't think. Ooh, trying to brainstorm. Can't remember. Can't remember off the top of my head. Anyway, it's happening right now. Back in the UK. Oh, that's rough. Let's get a comfort mode on the suspension. That was really rough. And try and work out where we're headed. Oh, 9 miles to empty. It seems like a long time ago, even though it was just a few days, that I was in Chicago trying to conserve the fuel driving towards the airport. And now I'm worry-free because the car has made it. Immaculate condition, ready to be fully fueled up. Honestly, this is so crazy. How does this make any sense? How have we managed... What? Well, we lost the G, but we do have some fuel. BP Ultimate. That's what we need right now. So I'm going to have to get very close to the pump because this is quite narrow. But yeah, this is a relief. Not going to run out of fuel here. Anyway, let me jump out, give it a full tank. Back on the roads then, with a full tank of fuel and the sunshine up ahead. I did have to clean the front window, or at least run the washer jets, and I tell you what, it needs a proper clean. It is filthy. I can't wait to have the car tidied up, but unfortunately we do have a bit more traffic between here and London than at least we had on the way out. It's going to take a fair bit more time to get the car back towards the garage, where I will hopefully also get it washed up. Maybe later on, we'll see how the rest of the day goes. For the minute though, the direction is of course towards home with the GT, which is a journey that I never always feel that comfortable with, just driving the car on normal motorways, because of course this is what happens at the centre. Let's not go through that again, but I will be kind of relieved when it's back in the garage, safe and sound, job done, all finished, back home, mission success. It just feels crazy to now be driving this car here in the UK. I mean, the last couple of months I've just been driving it around the US, from East Coast to West Coast and back again, and now here we are, sitting in normal British traffic again, as if nothing ever changed, nothing ever happened, which is, it twists the mind a lot. Anyways, hopefully the journey won't take too long, we can make it safely back home. It's just crazy to have the car back. Well, this is no fun. First little bit of traffic. I've got the G sitting behind me and the grille is pretty much all I can see in my rearview mirror. But yeah, we're kind of crawling along, and I suspect this is going to be the story for a lot of the remainder of the journey. We have an hour to cover 20 miles. Welcome to London. In fact, in the US, I saw some traffic in New York and LA, but basically nowhere else. Those are the only kind of places where the traffic was really bad, and that's only at a certain time of day. Basically any other time it's kind of fine. In the UK, it's like this always. It's just an immensely frustrating place to drive. Constant traffic jams, often bad weather. Yeah, a car like this deserves to be driven at least around the continent, racetracks, fun open places, not queuing on the motorway. Generally speaking, for the most part, it hasn't been too bad a journey. Just one of those where there are so many cars on the roads, it's congested, you're constantly slowing down, you never go the speed limit. So it's taken probably an hour and a half or so to get back into central London from Stansted, which is, well, far from ideal, let's say, but always to be expected. We will, however, get this car back home, and it still feels odd driving it back here. I don't know. It's just such a strange thing to have done, to have taken it so far away and now to have it back. Of course that was always going to happen, it was always going to come home, and I don't know how much driving I'm going to do with it going forward. We'll see, because I think it probably needs a kind of hibernation break. Just park the car, leave it for a while, do some miles on the Senna when that's back, of course, instead of on the GT. But we'll have to see. There'll be some events, there'll be various things, of course. I'm not one for garage queening my cars, as you know. You see them being driven all around the world, literally, in the case of this one. But, I don't know, there's something about having it home. Just, what is this? How does it work? How have we literally flown it over the sea? Well, actually 3 times now, because it came over once, went over, came back. It sounds so silly to say that, but so cool. It's my car. I've taken it now, built up even more memories with it. I won't remember sitting in the traffic jam. Hopefully that gets very quickly forgotten. But the good times with this over in the USA, Just mental.
And just like that, we are back in the garage. The last time the GT was here was when we took it outside to load it up with turbo transport to take it to Amsterdam to fly it to New York. A couple of months later, the car has returned home. Of course, like I said, it needs a proper clean-up, but parked here now, joining the GT8, the Heritage RS, and the 675 LT that's come back as well. We will have a full garage update to come with those, with more. There's a lot to talk about, what's going on with the various cars, but we've definitely got skittles going on, don't we, with the different colours, the purple, the orange, the blue and orange, the red and gold. It is very, very colourful in here, but having this car home is just surreal. These adventures with it have been so epic, cementing the memories, and I think place for the Ford GT as very much a permanent keeper car. It is an incredibly special thing, only about 2 handfuls of them in the UK in total delivered so far. A very, very special car, a very significant car now to me as well, with the adventures that I've had with it. Crazy to think it's been around the USA and now it's back with the license plate in its rightful territory, joining the other cars parked here in the garage. We just swung back the covers so that we could reveal them all, but the LT in its bright purple. There's a lot actually to talk about with this car. Of course, it went away for its 3rd year service, and I'll have more to tell you about that. The Heritage RS and the GT8 have been living in storage, and now the GT is back home, rejoining its stablemates, back after that epic journey, of course, armed with a new set of tyres that were installed at Galpin while I was over in California, but having driven the likes of Death Valley up the Pacific Coast Highway, having flown, well, if we tried to work it out, about 7,000 air miles that this car has? Well, no, 10,500 if you include the first journey that it did as well, and then plenty of trucking miles around the country, but still also plenty of miles added to the clock. Anyway, it's been literally the journey of a lifetime and an epic adventure. And all I can say is thank you very much for joining me on the travels with the GT in the USA. It seems crazy that only a few months ago I was standing in here announcing that I was going to embark on this adventure, and here we are. Sadly, for this time around, it is all over, but that's not to say there won't be more in the future. I'm already cooking up other different plans, other crazy adventures, and there'll be a lot more of that to come on the channel, so stay tuned. For now though, thank you very much again for joining me on, I think, the biggest trip, the best trip that I have ever done. For the end of the USA adventures though, I think that is pretty much all. The GT is back home, so thanks again guys. That's it for now, and I'll see you again very soon. Cheers!